A Game 7 comeback for the ages up in Winnipeg.
The Jets, they overcome another shaky start from Connor Hellebuyck, willing their way into the second round.
Yeah, a double overtime thriller to wrap up what was a crazy first round.
And we've got all that and so much more on this Sunday night Stanley Cup Playoff edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hello there, hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. I'm Cam Stewart, a sad and bitter Boston Bruins fan on the third coast.
And I'm Tyler Feldman, a lifelong Penguins fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh, but currently loving life in Austin, Texas. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Cam, I wouldn't want it any other way. 2 goals in the final 2 minutes to force overtime, and then we get a double overtime dandy to wrap up the first round of these unbelievable Stanley Cup playoffs.
You know, we are a little bit selfish sometimes. It did back up our work about an hour and a half. But, Tyler, I mean, you're right. What the Jets did was nothing short of spectacular. I mean, miraculous, you could even say. 4-3 win, double overtime, Game 7 to stun the Blues and go on to the second round. I think a lot of people were stunned this went to 7. It's the third longest Game 7 in the history of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We go deep into double overtime in this one, and it should not have gotten anywhere near that. This was all St. Louis for most of the game. And once again, like it reared its ugly head. These Connor Hellebuyck woes. The Blues score 70 seconds into the game with Jordan Kyrou. They get another one in the first period from Matthew Joseph. That was just a horrible goal for Hellebuyck to give up. Short side. It looked like here we go again. And you got to give Hellebuyck some credit. He does bear down after that. I don't know that he has any spectacular saves or anything after that. But
I'm gonna argue that there, Cam. He did bounce back after Cole Perfetti finally scored for Winnipeg in the second period. He had a big save right after that, and you can feel the momentum. It seemed like it was shifting in the Jets' favor. The crowd was getting into it. A 2-1 hockey game, and then late in the second period with about 30 seconds left, the Blues tack on one more, and it's 3-1 after 40 minutes.
And it stays that way, by the way, 3-1 through 58 minutes. And with just under 2 minutes left, the Jets start the comeback. They score 2 with the goalie pulled, including one with 1.6 seconds left, the latest ever goal in a Game 7 in regulation. That sends us into overtime. We get deep into the double overtime before Adam Lowry ends it and makes it one of the biggest wins in either Winnipeg Jets history. So let's go from our Locked On Jets host, Harrison Lee, and what this means for Winnipeg to be moving on up.
Putting into words what we just saw, enough justice really isn't going to go far enough. What Winnipeg just did against the St. Louis Blues in Game 7 is the stuff of miracles. It is the stuff of a team of destiny. I thought that this team might be on that path when they were close to winning the President's Trophy, but this is the stuff that makes you truly believe. I will admit I was doubting this team after a couple of awful road games. I thought the Jets were going to be on the ropes after they had a horrendous opening period tonight. Things were looking flat, and yet somehow, when the team needed a hero most, Cole Perfetti stepped up in the last few seconds of the game, literally less than 2 seconds remaining to tie it, forcing double overtime. The Jets finished it off, and they advanced to the second round to face Dallas. Winnipeg, thank you. I'm your host, Harrison Lee from Locked On Winnipeg Jets. We'll be previewing and talking about all the series coverage this coming week. See you then. But for tonight, fans, just enjoy. Have a great night. And as always, go friggin' Jets, go.
The Jets. It's giving the friggin' Jets a whole new meaning.
Jets.
They move on. And what's crazy is, like, obviously, you know, the 1-8, the President's Trophy winners in the Jets, you wouldn't expect it to be such a shocking Game 7 win. But Tyler, they put themselves in this position, so don't feel too bad for them. But they had no business at points in this game coming back and winning this game 7. And anytime you're up 2 with 2 minutes left, that's a massive choke job by St. Louis.
I'm not sure what the energy is like in the Blues locker room right now, given the fact that they had won 12 straight at one point. They were one of the hottest teams in hockey. They were the talk of the league. They get into the playoffs, a tough first-round matchup against Winnipeg. You're thinking to yourself, okay, well, Connor Hellebuyck, what's he going to be like? Are we going to get regular season Connor, or are we going to get playoff Connor? And they did get playoff Hellebuyck at points. They forced him to get pulled 3 times. And you were wondering in this game, that first goal where Jordan Kyrou scored, what was Connor Hellebuyck doing? He was way out of the net. And now I will say the players in front of him, Winnipeg was out of position in the neutral zone, and then in their own zone, they were still out of position. And then I don't know if Connor Hellebuyck was like, I need to make some huge save, but he went down early, and then he was all over the place. Second goal.
Wide open net for Kyrou, yeah.
You get a third-line goal from Matthew Joseph. Horrible turnover by Kyle Connor in front of Hellebuyck.
Against the Jets' first line, and your best forwards turning it over at center ice.
But when that puck went in on that wrister from that distance, I said to myself, regular season, Connor Hellebuyck makes that save 10 times out of 10. But for some reason, in the playoffs, down 2-0 in the first period now at this point, I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, he was bad on the road, really bad on the road. But you'd think in a game 7 at home where he's been strong that he would figure it out. Finally, thankfully, in the second period, Cole Perfetti makes it 2-1. But then that Radek Foska goal, a fourth-line goal, makes it 3-1 with 30 seconds left in the second period. I have a big issue with this goal, Cam. What do you remember from this goal? Because I want to get into it, but I want to hear what you thought from that goal before I really dive into this third one that he gave up.
Yeah, so it's a 3-on-2, right? Not the most threatening 3-on-2. Not all 3-on-2s are created equal. And Foska's got time and space, but again, you're talking about a fourth line guy, a guy who's been around the block a few times. And what I really took from it is they did their homework, because Hellebuyck's been beat high glove side 13 times in this series. That was the 13th one. And I just think, and we were talking about this a little bit before the show, like you said it about the second goal. I think the third goal just as much. Like regular season Connor Hellebuyck is out and cutting down that angle. A confident Connor Hellebuyck, it's a good shot. Let's not get it twisted. It's a good shot. But a confident Connor Hellebuyck is gloving that pretty easily, cutting down the angle to the point where they might even be trying to drop pass rather than a shot. But in this series, yeah.
And Cam, to that point, if you look at the replay, instead of owning the crease, stepping up, taking away the angle, and making the save with his glove, he drops back into the net, toward the goal line, toward the post, because we had seen earlier in the series he had problems hugging the post on a couple goals he let in. So I think that was in the back of his mind. Instead of stepping up, taking away the angle on that wrist shot, that was a pretty shot, top shelf, glove side, he gave Foska that angle because he was more worried about covering the post and making sure something didn't slide in that way. And like you said, a confident Connor Hellebuyck doesn't think about that. He just makes the right decision, plays the position properly, but he was out of position. So now it's 3-1. By the way, the St. Louis Blues fourth line scored 6 goals in this series. So you have to credit what St. Louis was able to do. Third period, though, Nemesnikov makes it 3-2 with 1:56 left. And that Perfetti goal, I had instant chills. That's one of the greatest Game 7 moments I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
It was just the crowd erupted. They had the cameras outside the arena in Winnipeg. I think Kenny Albert really could have said, do you believe in miracles? Yes. And it would have been appropriate. Al Michaels would have been like, you know what? That was the right time to make that call, because an unfathomable ending where the Blues give up a 2-goal lead with less than 2 minutes to go. And then all the momentum swing goes into Winnipeg's favor, but there's no scoring in the first overtime. Everyone's just tired. You texted me. This ain't looking good. This might be a third overtime.
I was thinking it was going all night. They weren't even getting shots on goal for half of these overtime periods, man.
And then Adam Lowry, of all people, a St. Louis kid.
How about that?
Scores the game winner on a tip-in. So a really great Game 7, which wraps up a fantastic first round of these playoffs. We've seen so many great games, so many great finishes, and that's why we love Stanley Cup playoff hockey. It's just that good, and it's been delivering night in, night out.
It is the best. And what we got the last two nights for Game 7s, absolutely incredible. I know there are some people who say you can't have a great Game 7 in the first round. Absolute hogwash. We got two back-to-back nights. Unbelievable
and
stuff.
now they'll be facing each other. So
yeah,
I think
how about
that's a cool little aspect.
No multi-goal lead is safe in that series, apparently. And it has to go down as probably the best win in this installment of the Jets history. You know, that even the Thrashers, will throw them in there. The Thrashers Jets history, this has got to be number one. And they're not
probably.
done yet.
It has to give Connor Hellebuyck confidence because he did finish strong, 26 saves on 29 shots. Not phenomenal, but I thought he gained confidence as that game wore on, and he did make some saves. Jordan Binnington, too. I mean, we've got to talk about him after the break because he played really well and kept the Blues in this game. There was one moment, though, late that he probably wants back.
We do need to head to break in a second, but before we do, we're going to talk about the Blues. Let's hear from our Locked On Blues host, Haley Taylor-Simon, who, let's just say we've all been there. We have all been there in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I know the Blues had no place being here, and I understand that. However, they showed dominance at home. They had the lead in this game, and with a couple of seconds left in regulation, they just, I can't say the words, but, you know, we go to double OT. Obviously, we know what happened. This is brutal. The Blues were the better team for majority of tonight's game. This one hurts. Besides doing this podcast, I'm a fan first. And this game's going to haunt me. This game is going to haunt me. We were under 2 seconds away. I'll talk to you more about it. I really don't know how I'm supposed to compose my thoughts. I'm going to need like a little bit to decompress right now.
Well, we're glad you did compose your thoughts there, Haley. We know it's tough coming right after a loss like that. This is one of those you stare at the TV for a while afterwards, not really knowing what's just happened.
Man, I got chills just now. I feel badly. It looks like she just saw a ghost. Understandable the way she's feeling right now.
Just a brutal way to end it, but what a run for these Blues. And we're going to take a look at what they did to get here to this spot and how this could have saved a lot of other teams in the Western Conference with Winnipeg knocking them out. We'll also take a deeper look at this Connor Hellebuyck thing. Is that going to carry over into the Dallas series? We'll talk about it next on Locked On NHL Game Night. But first, let me ask you guys a question. You ever look at that bank account and think, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO. It gives you full visibility and control over your finances. It isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. It's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here. You've never been to a live NHL playoff game before, there's nothing like it. Trust me. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building. Look at Winnipeg. It was unbelievable. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. It's the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as puck drop gets closer. And with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. That's what I love so much, is how much you could save right at the last minute. And also, you toggle the all-in pricing tool, shows you the total cost up front, no surprise fees at checkouts. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Back here on Locked On NHL Game Night, Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman joining me as always. And we just saw an unbelievable finish in Winnipeg. That word is far too overused in the English language, unbelievable. But what we just saw was pretty unbelievable.
It was unbelievable.
I mean, come on. And just evidenced by the fact that it looked like Winnipeg just was dead in the water. Like they just didn't have the firepower. It was one of those classic not their nights kind of thing. But that's why you've got Jim Montgomery behind one of the benches, so that you could give up a couple of goalies when the other team has a couple of goals when the other team has their goalie pulled. But what a run by the St. Louis Blues, Tyler. I mean, this team was not at all part of the discussion during the Four Nations break, discussion about the playoffs. Obviously, they canned their coach early on because they really wanted Jim Montgomery, sign him to the 5-year deal. And after the Four Nations break, after Jordan Binnington wins it in net for Canada, they take off. And they became arguably the most dangerous team in the playoffs going into the postseason, even as an 8 seed.
And given what their roster build up and makeup is like, I wouldn't say it's shocking, but it was a little bit surprising. But that's why you bring in a guy like Jim Montgomery. He clearly brought in the energy that the team and the franchise needed at that time. And it's worth what St. Louis did to get him, even though it was maybe debated or confusing for some.
Sure. And seems slimy. I mean, it's a business, but
rub some people the wrong way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a business. And the way in which Jordan Binnington played tonight, 43 saves on 47 shots, he kept St. Louis in this game. I do want to say, though, he is a big reason why they won 12 straight and became the team that made the playoffs, that got to face Winnipeg, that had this opportunity. You could see it in their faces in the handshake line that despite the fact that they very well could be in the second round right now, getting set to play Dallas, celebrating a Game 7 win on the road against Winnipeg, and they're not doing that. But in the handshake line, I think there was a sense of accomplishment despite this devastating loss, because on the St. Louis side, if you're a Blues fan like Haley Taylor, Simon, I don't know how you go to sleep tonight. I don't know how you're not wrestling with all the different thoughts and plays in your head, especially Cole Perfetti's goal with seconds remaining. How do you let that happen? It was a total breakdown, and I think Binnington would probably want that play back because he had played so well, but I feel like in that moment, he maybe shriveled into his shell, kind of like Hellebuyck has done throughout the series and throughout his playoff career. When you need that big tortoise to be fiery and to pop out of that shell and you then crawl back in, that's what I feel like Jordan Binnington did on that goal, because he took away some of what makes him such a great goalie, and he allowed Winnipeg to just do damage in front, and then the redirect, and bang, it's 3-3. We go to overtime.
And this, I mean, I know you heard it throughout this first round, but this felt so much like the 2019 Blues, man. That was a little bit more dramatic. They were in last place in January, but it felt like that black magic coming back, like what the Panthers have right now. It's Michael Myers. Like, you've got to cut the head off or else he's not dead.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, the 2 goals in the last 2 minutes of regulation, 1 in the last 2 seconds, like that's cutting the head off.
Maybe Winnipeg's better off without Hellebuyck in net and just playing with 6 guys.
It's something to think about, Scott Arneal. It's something to think about because they are not out of the woods yet, I don't think, when it comes to this Connor Hellebuyck thing. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the Blues, I know this is a silly thing to say in the postseason because everyone's a good team at this point. but I'll bet there are some teams in the Western Conference that are like, oh, thank God we don't have to face them. Like once you're running into them, as is evidenced by this series, you throw the records out, and they're just they're gonna muck it up in the best way possible. Like that, so much respect for the Blues in this series. I said it earlier in the series. It's not like they are one of the most intimidating barns in the league. It's not like going up to Montreal in the playoffs, but they dominated at home. Like,
Yeah.
it's one thing to go against a great crowd, but it's quite another to go against a team that is that confident at home. It just didn't spill over into Winnipeg.
They scored 17 goals in 3 home games in this series.
That's decent, man.
And they got the Vezina Trophy winner pulled in all 3 of those games. And you had a chance to do it on the road. You were this close.
I mean,
this close.
And and at that point, I was thinking, it doesn't matter if the game's at home or not for Connor Hellebuyck. If he doesn't have the confidence, at some point that catches up to you. And
I
in the
think
first
this
period,
could be the game. I wouldn't be shocked if it's not miraculous. Maybe this is what he needed, like the sigh of relief. Oh my, thank God. I wasn't at my best. I did it again, but we advanced. Now it's time. I had that feeling. I've had it in my gut every time I'm in the playoffs. Maybe the next series is the series he delivers. I could see it happening.
You know what? That's a good segue here. Let's talk about that. Coming up after the break, let's look ahead for Jets and Stars and this intriguing All-American goaltender matchup and whether we will get the goaltender series that we are promised, that we would be promised on paper. Let's do that next on Locked On NHL Game Night.
But first, this episode is also brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. And with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. These experts, they're ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Hey, if you need help with the marketing campaign, for example, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
Locked On NHL Game Night. Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman here, recapping an unbelievable night. I'll keep using that word. Unbelievable night.
Is that your word of the night?
I guess it's got to be. Do we have any kind of horns we can play or something? Really get the people fired up?
We'll work on it. We're going to work on the horns.
We'll have that ready at some point. Conference
we need
finals
the
is
horns.
what we're ballparking it at. But an incredible win for the Winnipeg Jets. For a lot of teams, that would be great enough to have that awesome Game 7 comeback victory. But look, this is the President's Trophy winners, man. That was only the first round. Now, that's usually the toughest before you get to the final, but they have bigger expectations than this. They definitely did going into this series, and now they get Dallas. And a great Central Division matchup, 2 teams that went over 100 points. They were kind of neck and neck even towards the end of the regular season, but Dallas fell off. They have the incredible Game 7 victory themselves. And this should promise, Tyler, on paper, to be the best goaltending matchup of the postseason.
Ottinger, Hellebuyck. Are you kidding me?
Please
you kidding
deliver.
me?
Please deliver.
Say less. I'm there. I'm watching.
Well, they're going to need. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say the Jets obviously are going to need a different Connor Hellebuyck than they've gotten the last couple of weeks. As we going into this game, he was obviously 3-3 in the series, but a 4.42 goals against average and an .815 save percentage in this year's playoff. It's crazy to think the first couple postseasons he played, he was actually pretty dialed in. And the team in front of him wasn't great, but these last 2, he's really fallen apart. And
those are ECHL numbers.
It's brutal, man. It's brutal.
And Hellebuyck, something's got to give in this series. I think my favorite part, though, going into Dallas, Winnipeg, is the fact that both teams are in the second round thanks to unbelievable Game 7 victories where the Avalanche were up 2 and Dallas came back and ended up winning in thrilling fashion. And then the same thing, obviously 2 different teams, different ways in which the goals were scored, but Winnipeg does the same thing tonight. So these are 2 teams thanking the heavens that they're even in the second round, despite how talented their teams are. Hey, both teams banged up too. Both teams were missing guys, Scheifele, Robertson. So who knows what the health of these 2 teams will look like, but it goes back to what we started this segment as Cam, surrounding the goaltenders, Ottinger, Hellebuyck. Who's going to play? Who's going to step up to the plate and play with the confidence that you and I both know have the confidence to play with, but we haven't always seen that consistently in the playoffs. Yeah,
and we saw Ottinger heat up towards the middle of that last series against Colorado. But in 4 games against the Jets this year, 1-3, 373 goals against, 869 save percentage. Not quite Hellebuyck playoff numbers, but not patented Jake Ottinger. This is one where if the Jets are getting anything like this series of Connor Hellebuyck, this is going to be over pretty quick. Like this is not like, again, all respect to the St. Louis Blues, a scrappy playoff hockey team.
Hey, we get it. You respect the Blues,
but the stars are stacked. Tyler.
Stars are bright. The stars are bright.
This is a different animal here, especially when you're getting this Mikko Rantanen.
I would say that these are 2 teams. Mikko Rantanen, by the way, to do it against his former team, I think Carolina is probably shaking its head, wondering why they got rid of Mikko Rantanen because of the way in which he's playing in this playoff.
I don't know. Those Colorado fans, man, they can justifying of like, oh, he's going to go after $15 million a year. We're not going to be able to re-sign him. Then he signs in Dallas for 12 and just crushes your dreams. I mean, that's got to go down. It's probably going to go down as one of the most painful trades in history. Like, I don't know if it's one of the worst. Like, it's
not
like
a bad trade,
but
look, it's a business. It's a business. Stuff happens. I would say in regards to this series, playing in that Dallas barn versus that St. Louis barn, you got to lock in. And if Dallas is healthy, if Robertson comes back, I mean, Dallas was able to win that series without one of their top scorers.
Yep. And still no Heiskanen.
Will Scheifele come back for Winnipeg? They won this game tonight with 5 defensemen.
Yes,
and they played nearly 5 periods. So health is going to be a big question mark for me in this series. But these are 2 teams. If you look back over the last few seasons, these are 2 teams that I think, in my brain, are due to lift the Stanley Cup. They've had everything kind of work out. One of these 2 teams, I think, is due based on how they've played. But the fact of the matter is the goaltending is going to need to be there for both of these teams. And if it's not, that's obviously the team that's not going to win this series.
Yeah. Well, you say that these teams are built to win the Stanley Cup. It feels like a matter of time. I'll have it be known again that I, before the season, picked the Stars to win the Stanley Cup, to no one in particular. And then we did our own brackets. And now the first round is done. So it's time to go over the brackets. Spoiler alert for mine, which I'll go to first. I didn't have the Stars winning the Cup in this bracket. I do have them winning this series and getting to the Western Conference Final. I felt pretty okay about this, Tyler. Now that the Lightning thing doesn't look great. It doesn't look great having the Lightning in the Stanley Cup Final.
That's a lot of dark spots on that board.
I did not love picking the East this year, and I got to say, my opinion on Washington has changed a lot through that first playoff series. But I still get the winner out West. Vegas, not playing the Kings, obviously, but have that Dallas-Vegas matchup in the conference final and the Golden Knights pulling it out. If I could hedge the bet, I might go back to Dallas. I love the way they played in that first round, even when things weren't going too well for them. I like the makeup of this team a lot. But the Lightning thing doesn't look good, Tyler. Doesn't look good.
Cam, thoughts and prayers.
You've still got a bunch of dogs in this fight. Look at that.
Yeah, look at my dogs, and look at the 2 teams that I picked incorrectly on the West. Colorado and LA, both game 7s, very close to being a perfect 4-for-4 on the West Coast. Eastern Conference, I'm still stunned by. Again, it's easy to look back now, but I can't believe that the Panthers 1-5. I still can't believe that.
That might be the stunner of the first round, just how quickly that went. And how
Without a doubt.
methodically that went.
But
that was so incredible by Florida.
Cam, not to toot my own horn, my all-Canada Stanley Cup final, Winnipeg, Toronto, still a possibility. I am a little bit concerned. I thought Hellebuyck would sure up his goaltending in the playoffs in that first round. I just thought that this was the year he'd figure it out. Obviously not the case. So now they're playing a Dallas team that seemingly didn't have any momentum going into the playoffs. And now, after how they won that series, I think goes into the Winnipeg matchup with a ton of momentum and a ton of confidence. I still love Vegas. It seems like they haven't played for days.
Yeah.
And Edmonton, impressive the way in which they found ways to win that series. So I think the Western Conference has a better shot to win the Cup this year than the Eastern Conference. That's just how I feel. A lot of better teams on the West, I'd say.
I'll give you one guarantee on this bracket before we go, because there's no guarantees in this bracket, but I'll give you one. If we get that Winnipeg-Toronto final, I have to find a way to subscribe to Sportsnet. Like, I'm just, there's no way I'm letting it sound like a regular season game in those two buildings. So,
we may
I will
have
find
to,
a way, Tyler.
We may have to have a conversation for another show. The broadcast nerd that I am, we might have to pocket that for another show.
I think we will.
Audio
I'm sick
matters.
Of waiting for the Sportsnet calls later.
If you've been listening,
man.
The audio for our first show together, I didn't turn the audio on for this mic. It was connected to my computer. So if you listen back, it sounds hollow.
You'll know why audio matters.
But you figure it out and you fix the audio.
And look where we are now.
Just
good stuff.
It's like a Game 7 victory. That's where we're at right now, Cam.
And we are on to the second round starting tomorrow night. Can't wait. And we will have that for you, of course. That is the night that was in the NHL. So make sure on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell. You can stay up to date on everything we're doing here on YouTube. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts as well. I want to thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network a part of your daily routine. And remember, of course, you can join us 7 days a week for all the NHL scores and storylines from your local experts and the guys like us, Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman, on Locked On NHL Game Night.